What's a made-up fact that sounds real? Tetris was inspired by a carpet shortage in the Soviet Union. People could only get carpeting scraps that were cut out for ware cabinets, closets, etc. Because of this, people had to figure out how to cover a floor with those scraps. A worker then had the idea to make a game out of it. The pieces were inspired by common shapes of those carpet scraps. Okay, let's do the math. According to this source, the standard radius for curbs is 10-15 feet, though in cities it can be as low as 2. So let's take 5 as a conservative estimate. Assuming a 90-degree left turn, a car would travel 1/4, 2 pi 57.85 feet, 1/4 of the circumference of the corresponding circle. Standard spacing of a lane is 12 feet, so the radius for a car one lane out would be 5 plus 12 equals 17. It would then travel 1/4, 2 pi 17 equals 26.70 feet over the course of a single turn. So, each turn in the outer lane loses you 26.70 to 7.85 equals 18.85 feet. To get to 84 miles, 443,520 feet, you would need to make 23,529 turns on the outside over the course of a year, which works out to about 64 turns per day. And that's if every turn you make is on the outside. If that's supposed to be an average across all Americans, then it looks like the Smith is busted. Fun note: because I teach geometry, it turns out that even knowing the radius of the turn at all is unnecessary. It's just the spacing between the lanes that matters. If the inner turn radius is r, then the calculation for the distance lost on an outside turn is 1/4, 2 pi, r plus 12, 1/4, 2 pi r. The r's cancel out, so the difference is always 1/4, 2 pi 12 equals 18.85. Our initial assumption about the radius being 5 didn't affect the answer in the first place. In 1976, the heads of the 6 leading manufacturers of microwaves, Tappan, Philips, Hitachi, Tricity, Toshiba and Panasonic, met to steal the patent for the rotating plate inside the microwave. They agreed to not pay the patent holder royalties and held that it would return to the exact same spot at the 60-second mark. They met in a secret conference on Jekyll Island, Georgia. If everyone agreed, then no manufacturer would have the upper hand. You can catch a cold from being cold. Edit: I'm getting way too many responses to respond to them all. Colds are caused by viruses. Can cold weather compromise your immune system, making you more susceptible? Under extreme conditions, yes, you still have to come in contact with the virus. There is not random virus floating out in the air. You have to be in the room with the sick person to get it through the air. It can also last on surfaces for several hours. Going for a run in cold weather will not make you sick if you come home to an empty house where no one has been sick. The suicide squads were real WW2 army groups sent out during the Battle of Bastogne. They were never expected to make it, and they took on the name in jest. Edit: okay, holy shit, I know IT's cliched out the rear, but my god, I never thought I'd make a post so good IT'd get a wholesome award. When new logging routes were opened in northern Canada, there was a sudden surge in crow deaths. A study was put in place to find out why the increase in logging trucks were leading to so many crow deaths. During the study, the researchers found that crows often worked in pairs, and when eating carrion off the road, one would act as a spotter and call whenever a car would come to warn the other crow. Learned this one the other day. Ever think about the word distribution? In its basic definition, to distribute something is to send something from one area to another. Like water being distributed from a treatment plant to your home, or the apples being distributed from the farm to the market. The word distribute actually derives from the Old French word trébuchet, a device that would launch or catapult a projectile hundreds of feet away from its original source. Trébuchet shares the very same 12th century Latin root word trébuche, of which later evolved into the English root word as tribute, and would ultimately go on to form the very foundation for the word distribute, that is to send an objects from point A to point B. Now you made me want to calculate how thin the filament of a melted down French horn would have to be to reach the moon. Edit, actual, estimated. Answer, a French horn could be melted down into a filament 1 micrometer in diameter that would reach from the Earth to the moon. Assuming a 2.6 kilograms French horn, 8.6 grams/cm3 density of brass, which gives a volume of 300 cubic centimeters, and 400,000 kilometers to the moon. For scale, a human hair is about 50-75 micrometers, so the horn would have to be stretched to less than 1/50th of the diameter of a hair. Wild haggis are found in the Scottish Highlands. They have 2 legs that are shorter than the others, an example of evolution from the creatures constantly climbing the hillsides. They were almost hunted out of extinction in the lowlands because without hills to walk on, they end up going in circles and can't run from the Scottish Bravehearts. Actually, gullible refers to the Roman Emperor Gallobulgus, who was chosen by the Praetorian Guard, after murdering the previous emperor, because his mental disabilities made him easy to manipulate. The ease with which they would fool him gave rise to the term gullible, which was then anglicized as gullible. Oh boy, I'm gonna get crucified. Mantis shrimp see 4 times as many colors as humans. Not really. While mantis shrimp have 12 color receptors to R3, they basically have a receptor for specific wavelengths of light, whereas humans can do higher order processing to see light that activates multiple cones. If something is emitting red and green light, then your brain averages it out to perceive it as yellow. Even though we can't see true yellow light, a mantis shrimp can't do that, so it has more receptors for individual colors, and also for polarized light, which is totally different and has nothing to do with color. Incidentally, that means that humans can actually see more colors than the mantis shrimp. Mantis shrimp can't see magenta because they don't do that color mixing thing. Magenta light doesn't exist. Basically, when you see something that emits blue and red light, it averages out to green. But you already have a green cone and it's not truly green, so your brain basically just makes up the opposite of green. The term pig out, used as the act of consuming too much food, originated in 1894 when Welsh farmers drove the pigs were let loose and ate the entire village's store of winter grain and fruit. Bonus fact, a group of pigs is called a drove because a rabid group of pigs stole a new Henry Ford Model T off the manufacturing line. My parents had me tricked to the point I got onto my son for it all the time, and the first road trip we took after he got a phone, he Googled it. I called my mom at 11 p.m. to give her a hard time for lying to me for so long, and both of my parents believed it because my grandparents on both sides got onto them for it. Don't let this distract you from the fact that in 1966, Al Bundy scored 4 touchdowns in a single game while playing for the Polk High School Panthers in the 1966 city championship game versus Andrew Johnson High School, including the game-winning touchdown in the final seconds against his old nemesis, Bubba Spare Tire Dixon. Did you know that humans are one of the best animals in the world at withstanding lightning strikes? In addition to our brains being so large, they're also insulated in a fluid-filled membrane that is comparatively larger than most animals. Our fatty deposits surrounding our other internal organs also have a similar effect, which is common in other animals, but particularly pronounced in humans. As a result, humans are particularly good at withstanding large jolts of electricity, such as lightning strikes. And when a person is killed by electricity, it's usually due to heart failure. The brain is almost always completely intact. Airplane pilots live on average 5 years shorter than anyone else. This is because of time dilation due to gravity. Gravity slows down time, and the further away you get from the Earth's center of mass, the weaker its gravity is. Thus, by moving away from the Earth's center of mass, pilots are literally making their lives go by faster. The word parasite comes from people who lived near Paris who would sell low-quality food that often made people sick. A law was passed making so they couldn't call their product Parisian unless they lived within a radius of the city, so they started branding their food as parasite. Grey Goose vodka was originally made to help produce larger yields of goose liver for foie gras. Vodka isn't usually a prominent liquor in France, but a French goose farmer learned that alcoholics had enlarged, fatty livers, so he developed a potent grain alcohol that he would force-feed geese as part of their diets to enlarge their livers before they were slaughtered. The recipe was perfected over time to not affect the taste of the goose liver, and eventually the family realized they could sell the grain alcohol as vodka as well, hence the name Grey Goose. Producers for the Oprah show suggested the Dr. Phil McGraw, before his first on-screen appearance, that he adopt a southern accent to give viewers a down-home, everyman demeanor, because he was so rigid due to the nerves of preparing to appear on national TV. The Dr. Phil we know and tolerate today has continued with his fake accent to this day. Historian here, which is exactly how Jefferson used the phrase in his letter to the Baptists. Baptists used to be a persecuted religious minority in the United States, and a group of Baptists in Connecticut were worried that the government would come after them. Jefferson assured them that this would not happen because there existed a wall of separation that kept the government from interfering with religion, whether through overt interference like criminalization and persecution or through more passive means such as taxation. This meant that the government was supposed to refrain from regulating religious belief and practice. It also meant that the U.S., unlike Europe, would never have a particular denomination be recognized as an official branch of the government. It never meant that those who participated in government had to abandon or set aside their own personal religious beliefs. In a nutshell, the government cannot regulate individuals' beliefs and practices, though in extenuating cases it has. Religious denominations cannot wield official political power. Individuals participating in government are free to maintain and profess their personal beliefs and practices. Ideally, we would never ask or imply that any American set aside their race/religion/gender/orientation/etc. in order to participate in democratic governance. An unknown person ate a bat in Wuhan that created one of the most infectious diseases ever encountered by mankind, which went around the entire world killing millions, but definitely did not originate nearby in the Institute of Virology lab where they were performing gain-of-function research on the same virus which infected the world. Said virus lead to unprecedented government laws imposed on citizens for the greater good of humanity, and we are all in this together. They say on the packets of sea monkeys that the first packet is a water purifier and the second are the eggs. This is a lie. The first packet contains the eggs. After the 24-hour waiting period for the water purifier to hatch the shrimp, you pour in packet 2, which has nothing but dye that makes the now-day-old shrimp easier to see. You could never pour in the second packet and have a perfect tank of sea monkeys. If you stop smoking, drinking couple months before pregnancy, there will be no harm to child from doing it earlier. Moderate drinking is safe for you. You can just eat whatever you want while counting calories. Calorie is just calorie. Losing weight through diet only is perfectly fine. Until you stay at that weight number, you are healthy. You need a degree to get a good job. Being officially employed is good because you get that benefits. Having a ton of money and just doing nothing all day is great and going to make you happy. The morbid history behind the ribbon-cutting ceremony. In medieval times, ropes were expensive to make, degraded when stored in damp conditions, and tended to snap when suddenly pulled taut. This meant that the ropes used to hang people needed to be replaced roughly once a year. A tradition developed that the last executions of the year would be performed just before the summer village fair. If the rope was still intact after the last execution, the executioner would stand before the villagers and ceremonially cut the rope, indicating the end of that rope's life and beginning of the fair. Although executions by hanging became less common over time, and were eventually discontinued, the tradition of the cutting of the rope to start the fair remained popular, and was eventually adopted for use in all forms of opening celebration. that shaving makes your hair grow in thicker. My mom was really pissy when I shaved for the first time at 13 to get rid of my pubestache because she said I was just going to make it worse. I showed her sources to remind her it's not true, and to this day she still stands by the fact. When women spend time together they cycle up. This is a myth. It's not supported by any science, but is regularly espoused. Getting wet in the cold, going outside with wet hair will make you sick. I spent a lot of time in Japan and they still believe this at an institutional level. My husband is Japanese and he still believes this. I got a bad infection while I was in JP as a kid, went into septic shock and woke up in a hospital. I wasn't allowed to have a shower for a week while I was there because they said I could catch a cold at the hospital. I don't believe it and I don't think it sounds real, but I had a whole argument with a 50-60-year-old woman trying to explain that we do in fact use 100% of our brain and not 10%. I got so heated and I've talked about it with my psychology teacher and he told me about having to explain that to students. Harm was actually a PR stunt for the Cincinnati Zoo. The ape shot was a guy in a gorilla costume. The child was a very short actor. Some say it's actually Kevin Hart and this is how his career started. Meanwhile, the real Harm is retired and lives on the same remote island paradise as Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson, Tupac and the original Paul McCartney. It's impossible for you to correctly pronounce your own name. When you speak your name, you hear it in a different way than everyone else because you also hear it internally with less bass. This is why Mickey Mouse rose quickly in popularity. His high-pitched voice sounds comforting because you hear your name in a similar higher than usual pitch. Now, most animation directed as kids includes at least one character with a specific higher than usual pitch. This character is usually the most marketable as it's universally more appealing. The gene duplication in spiders responsible for giving them multiple pairs of eyes is thought to have originated from a horizontal gene transfer event caused by viruses sometime in their evolutionary history. Spiders owe one of their most important adaptations to an ancient infection. It is illegal for the interior light in the car to be on when driving. I'd about anyone else, but I used to get an earful from my parents when I turned the light on in the car. It was always either I'll get pulled over or I'll wreck if it's on. It only recently dawned on me that yeah, it is a distraction, unsafe, but you won't get pulled over unless the driver is being reckless. Also, you can still see it is just a nice train smell. There is a secret pedophile ring that is infiltrating the United States government and is supported by American celebrities and politicians. Former United States President Donald Trump is aware of this cabal of evil sex offenders and through secret military transcripts and memos he is single-handedly sending messages to the public to help him uncover their organization and bring justice to the people being abused. Did you know that the first known record of the word nappy has to be credited to the French, or that the first public school was located in Bath, England, in 1547, or that the USA is the only country to have both a national flag and national anthem? Did you know that there are 300 different kinds of lemons in the world, or that lemons taste great with cheese? Edit, rickrolled by Australians for being stupid. I've never heard of the animal and Australian animals are unusual to us Americans, so I never questioned, researched it. Australia's drop bears. I'm American and we have bears, wolves and other types of our key animals here. When I first heard of them I was certain this was real. In the 2000s as a kid, born 94. After actual research, like after 2010 I discovered I was Aussie rickrolled. God damn it. One of the main ingredients in energy drinks is actually bull pea. The companies knew that wouldn't sell too well, so they used the portmanteau of the words Taurus and urine on the labels to make it sound more appealing. So whenever you're taking a swig of an energy drink chock full of taurine, just remember you're drinking bull piss. Red Bull was actually the first company to realize that they could get away with this gimmicky marketing trick and decided to name the product after a bull. Just rub it into the consumers' faces. See, this is the type of talk that girls love to delve on. That's why you guys have cat fights. You don't know me like that, but you already insinuated that I do menial work. This is exactly why men hate talking with women. We're trying to be logical and you come in with your emotions and you type in this first fucking thought in your stupid head and just blurt it out.